The first time I realized something wasn't right with this neighborhood, it was almost too late. A place that was supposed to be peaceful farmland, where mornings smelled of fresh hay and evenings glowed under the soft hum of crickets, had somehow turned into a battlefield, one where the enemy wore polite smiles, tailored suits, and called themselves the HOA. But let me back up. My name is Travis. My wife Lisa and I bought this farm with a dream. Quiet, land that stretched far enough that you couldn't hear a neighbor sneeze, and the simple dignity of working for ourselves. What we hadn't counted on was a woman named Karen Tyson, president of the Briarwood Homeowners Association, who saw every fence, every tractor path, every inch of our soil not as ours, but as hers to control. At first, it was small things, letters about the height of our grass, complaints about where I parked my truck, warnings that our barn paint wasn't aesthetically consistent with the neighborhood. I laughed them off. A farm isn't a cul-de-sac. Out here, dirt is supposed to show. But Karen wasn't laughing. Every week the fines got bigger, the threats sharper. And soon, it wasn't just letters. One morning I found my driveway blocked by orange cones, a bright slip of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. HOA violation. Unauthorized vehicle storage. My truck on my land. It felt absurd, until I realized this was only the beginning. Lisa, sharper with a computer than I'll ever be, started documenting everything. Every letter, every warning, every odd encounter. And she noticed a pattern. The fines weren't being processed through the HOA's bank account. The checks neighbors wrote were being rerouted. She couldn't yet prove it, but her gut told her Karen was running something much bigger than neighborhood power games. Still, it was one night that changed everything. I came home late, headlights sweeping across the barnyard, and I saw movement by the fuel tanks. At first I thought it was a coyote, but no, this was a man crouched, trying to siphon gas. When my beams caught him, he froze like a rabbit. His hands, blue, glowing, like something out of a science fiction flick. I hit the brakes and jumped out, shouting. He stumbled, dropped the hose, tried to run. But I've worked this land too long to let someone escape on it. A few seconds later, he was on the ground, my boot on his wrist, flashlight blinding his face. His name was Jerry, a handyman. And when Lisa came out with her phone camera rolling, Jerry broke faster than rotten wood. He confessed everything. How Karen had sent him, how he was supposed to sabotage, steal, intimidate. His words spilled out, wet with fear. We had him, on camera. A confession. A thief tied directly to Karen Tyson. For a moment I thought the nightmare was over. But Lisa, always the realist, shook her head. Not enough, she whispered. In court, it's his word against hers. She'll chew him up and spit him out. And so began the longest night of digging I've ever seen. Lisa sat at her computer like a woman possessed, combing through county records, property deeds, business filings. I poured coffee, paced, stared at the screen as she pieced together a web I couldn't even begin to imagine. At 2 a.m, she struck gold. Fake HOA minutes, official records that claimed a special meeting had authorized legal action against us. But we knew there had never been such a meeting. Our neighbor Ed, who sat on the board, confirmed it. Karen had forged the minutes, falsified legal documents to give herself power she didn't have. Still, Lisa wasn't done. She traced a shell company called Oak Ridge Estates, supposedly a developer pushing for an easement through our land. Registered in another state, anonymous, except for one slip, a registered agent name. Karen Miller. Wait, I said. Miller? Lisa's lips curled into a grim smile. A few clicks later, she pulled up a yellowed newspaper clipping, a wedding announcement from 20 years ago. The bride's name, Karen Miller. Her maiden name, that was it. The final thread. Karen had been paying herself through a shell company, disguising her greed as development. We had the confession. We had the fake minutes. And now the money trail. The queen rat had left her tracks. We thought we had a few days to plan. To gather our files, walk into the sheriff's office, and drop the whole ugly truth on his desk. But Karen must have realized Jerry had gone silent. She must have felt the walls closing in. Because the next night, when the storm rolled in like a beast out of the Old Testament, she sent muscle. Wind howled. Thunder shook the windows. Rain fell so hard it blurred the world into grey streaks. The power went out with a pop, plunging the house into darkness. Lisa lit oil lamps, their glow flickering against the wood beams. My chest was still tight with the adrenaline of what we'd discovered, but now a new fear settled in. Lisa's phone buzzed with a motion alert. The oak tree camera. We bent over the screen. Even through the curtain of rain we saw it, a battered pickup truck grinding up to our gate. 2 men climbed out. One wrapped a heavy chain around the gate. The other slid back behind the wheel. They weren't here to scare us. They were here to break in. They'll pull the gate off its hinges, Lisa whispered. Her hands shook as she tried to dial 911. Nothing, no signal. The storm had killed the towers. A cold fire spread through me. My home, my wife, my land. I wouldn't let them through. Stay inside. Lock the doors. If they get past me, hit the panic horn and hide in the pantry. I grabbed the heaviest flashlight I had, shoved my keys in my pocket, and stepped into the storm. The rain was so thick it slapped my face like hands. But I wasn't going for my pickup, no. I was going for the beast. Old Green, the tractor. The engine roared to life, a deep growl that shook the ground. Headlights split the darkness, twin beams of raw power. I didn't waste time with the gate. I knew my land. I plowed straight through the side fence, wires snapping like firecrackers as the tractor chewed through them without slowing. The timing was perfect. The chain on the gate snapped as the men tugged, their truck lurching forward, and I was already there, bursting out of the storm with 12 tons of steel. For 1 second, lightning lit everything. Their faces pale, eyes wide. They panicked, slammed the truck into reverse. Tires spun in the mud, wheels flinging water. I pressed forward, steady, relentless, like a wall of iron. I didn't need to hit them, just guide them, herd them like cattle. They tried to swing wide, but the mud betrayed them. The truck fishtailed, skidded, and then, with the inevitability of gravity itself, slid down the embankment. The pond swallowed it whole. Nose down, tail up, headlights glowing like ghostly candles beneath the black water. I stopped the tractor at the edge, rain running down my face. The 2 men scrambled out, coughing, gasping, their fight gone. And then I saw them, 2 dark rectangles bobbing on the surface. Phones, burner phones, evidence. I waded in, grabbed them before they could sink. I held them high. The men just stared, defeated. They knew what I had. When the sheriff finally arrived an hour later, after the storm passed and the lines came back, he found 2 shivering men in cuffs, a drowned truck in my pond, and me, standing in mud, with the phones sealed in a bag. I handed him everything. The confession, the videos, the fake minutes, the company filings. He shook his head, half weary, half impressed. "Travis," he said, "you don't do anything small, do you?" I didn't answer. Because I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. We thought we had ended her game. But Karen Tyson wasn't finished yet. And neither was I. The night the sheriff hauled those 2 soaked thugs out of my pond, I thought I had finally bought us some peace. Their burner phones, Jerry's confession, Lisa's digital trail, all of it pointed straight at one woman, Karen Tyson. It felt like the storm had washed the world clean. But peace, I learned, is fragile, and people like Karen don't surrender. They recalculate. The next week was a blur of court filings, emergency board meetings, whispers in the grocery store aisles. Word spread fast. Neighbors who once bowed under Karen's rules started standing a little taller, muttering about the end of her reign. But if Karen felt the walls closing in, she didn't show it. She arrived at hearings dressed sharp, chin high, acting as though she still ran the whole county. Lisa and I spent those days building a fortress of proof. Every document went into binders. Every video backed up on 3 drives. We knew Karen's kind. She'd claim ignorance. She'd shift blame. She'd smear us. We had to be airtight. Then the district attorney took the case. And that single word dropped into the room like a hammer. Racketeering. The board of the HOA, the one Karen ruled like her private kingdom, went silent. Her own lawyer leaned close, whispering with the urgency of a drowning man. And I watched the crack finally spread across her proud mask. She pled, not out of guilt, but out of calculation. Prison time or surrender everything. She chose the latter. The news spread through Oak Ridge estates like wildfire. Resignations poured in from board members who had once marched to her drumbeat. My neighbor Ed, steady as a fence post, was appointed interim president. He called an emergency meeting in the clubhouse. I went, though I had no intention of celebrating. The room was packed shoulder to shoulder. For the first time in years, I saw hope on people's faces instead of fear. Ed stood at the front, cleared his throat, and read the line everyone had been waiting for. All fines issued under the previous board for the last 2 years are void. The room erupted. Cheers, tears, handshakes. For some, it meant hundreds or thousands of dollars clawed back from Karen's schemes. For others, it meant dignity restored. As for me, I just let my shoulders sag, breathing for the first time like a man no longer carrying a hay bale on his back. The so-called developer easement, gone. Dissolved with Karen's plea. The outsiders sniffing at my pasture vanished like coyotes chased off with buckshot. My land remained mine, just as it had always been. Life at last began to slip back into its rhythm. Feed the cattle, mend the fences, sleep without checking the cameras 3 times. Evenings with Lisa on the porch, watching bats slice the twilight. The corn turned green, then gold, then disappeared into the trucks with that sweet dust that coats your teeth and makes you already dream of next year. Winter laid its quiet hat on the fields, but scars remain even when the wound heals. One cold afternoon I was cleaning the barn, sorting bolts into coffee cans, stacking lumber, chasing dust bunnies that had gathered in corners. By the door sat a cardboard box, rescued from the clubhouse, paper ghosts of Karen's reign, old agendas, pens that never worked, a crooked trophy for best yard. At the bottom lay a bent metal plate caked in dry ditch mud. MSHOA? I laughed. Couldn't help it. The plate, once polished and proud, now dented and useless, was the perfect emblem of Karen's empire. I washed the mud off but left the bend. The bend was the truth. I carried it to the center beam of the barn, older than me, older than most of my mistakes. I set the plate at eye level. Took a hammer, one fat nail. The sound of steel striking wood echoed through the barn as I fixed it in place. Lisa stepped in, cheeks pink from the cold. She looked at the plate, then at me. "You keeping that?" "Oh, yeah," I said. We stood there in the quiet, the wind fussing at the door, a calf bawling somewhere, a hen bragging about nothing at all. Lisa slid her hand into mine. "What's it say to you?" she asked. I stared at the crooked plate, sunlight catching its edges, throwing a pale glow on the old wood. "It says, we don't start trouble here," I told her. "But if someone brings it to our door, we don't roll over. Around here, if you block a driveway, you meet a ditch. And if you try to take what's ours, you meet us." She squeezed my hand. I switched off the lights. The plate glimmered faintly, a crooked moon nailed to the barn wall. The barn now held more than tools. It held our story, our scars, and one loud reminder. We mind our business until someone decides to make their business ours. Then we mind it with wits, with proof, and, if we must, with 12 tons of green steel. That was the ending Karen Tyson never saw coming. She thought she could grind down a farmer, control a family, turn land into leverage. But out here, land isn't leverage. It's blood, it's history, it's fight. And no matter what name they wear, HOA, developer, lawyer, or thief, if they come for it, they'll learn the same lesson. This farm doesn't fall.